We'd like to move on to our panel discussions, and I'm very pleased to honor the first panel of the day. The topic is Voices of Survivors' Families, and what we're looking at is a youth perspective on upholding Indigenous laws. And of course, the theme throughout the Assembly being in the search and the recovery of missing children. So I'd like to welcome our three youth panelists. We have Scott Fox with the Blood Tribe in Alberta. We have Carmelo Swan, who is Inuk from Manitoba. And Stephanie, I have to apologize, I'm pronouncing the last name, Stephanie. You're going to have to help me out. Stephanie Nerlungoyak from Manitoba. So we have our three panelists. Again, we have a lot of issues to deal with, a lot of discussion throughout the rest of today. So I'm going to ask the panelists if you can stick to the 15 minutes. I'll give you a little reminder when I know you can't see how much time has passed. I'll give you a little reminder when we're about done. So 15 minutes each. So at this point, I'm going to ask Scott to start us off with his presentation.
Oki nikshoko-ax, itamikshistiko, gitkana ikshimetsimchpoao. Nimchtut sitabi mamyoix, gi agabugax, bootstakix, agakshimax. Nikshista anestate ni itsoyochkomi, nin anestate ni sikapi, nachsix. Udagyamaki. Ishkitsikam, Napiaki, Nitagakshamakwan. Greetings, all my relatives. I happily shake all of your hands. Gitkanaikshimtsimchpoao. Nimchdut sitabi, my spirit comes to you from the Mamyoiks, the Fish Eaters clan. The Agabugax is the Many Children's clan. The Bootstakiks, I haven't been given a proper translation at a later date. In the Agakshimags, I've also heard it as Agasuwu, which means many who went to war. My mother is Calls from the Water. My father is Black Horse. My grandmother is Golden Woman. My grandfather is the Seven Seas. My other grandmother is Napiaki, which is what we call a white woman. She's from the tribe. It's a little joke they played on her. She was born off reserve in a white hospital. So part of our Blackfoot ways, we tease our people and we borderline ridicule them. So she was teased. Being born amongst white people, they said, "You're a white woman." My grandfather, the Seven Seas, was named after a World War II veteran, Beat-Abogap, had Eagle Child. When our men went to war and they came home, it was apparent that their medicine was strong and they were able to survive the battle and come back to the people. So among their duties was to give names to people, and he named my grandfather the Seven Seas because he traveled the Seven Seas. That's my brief introduction. I've shortened it. It normally takes longer than that. I'd like to give my perspective on traditional law. The source of traditional law is sacred, meaning it was handed down to us from Creator, what we call our inherent rights. We inherited those from Creator. And there are certain elements to our sacred law. Where I come from, we have what's known as asan, which is our red paint. This is my ceremonial shirt, and there's some red paint on here. I got it before COVID. I put it on after COVID, and now my ribbons have stretch marks on them. I've put on a few pounds, so I hope the light and the shade kind of covers them. The songs Awadui Nengstsi, which is our sacred way of singing. Our ceremonies, among them is Tsitskan, the sweat lodge, Ganotsis, the all-night smoke, the Agogatsis, which is our circle camp. This is the substance of our sacred law. These are the elements we can touch that Creator gifted us. For instance, if I wanted to transfer my teepee to, let's say, someone like, maybe Kimberly Murray, along with the teepee would go paints and the songs to the teepee. And once Kim has both the paints and the songs, she can rightfully say, this is my lodge. On our territories, we have those paints and those songs. Creator gave those to us, and we have those. That's why we can claim that we belong to our territories. So if the settlers actually do own our land, they would have our paints, they would have our songs. So if Justin Trudeau owned my territory, he could sing to you our songs, he could use our paints, and he could perform our ceremonies, but he can't. Therefore, we have not transferred away any part of our territory. Every inch of our land is still ours because we hold to it those sacred elements that Creator entrusted to us, and to this day we still do them. From my perspective, this is how we were gifted a great number of our sacred laws. The story was long ago, a man, he had a beautiful wife. It was so beautiful that the Kshistaki, the beaver, he wanted to marry this woman. The beaver took her into her lodge for a winter. When she returned back to her husband that following spring, she was pregnant. She had the beaver's child in her. And the man was not upset. He was actually honored. And the beaver wanted to gift the man. So there was an exchange. With the help of the crow invited all the animals on Blackfoot territory. They made what we can call a council of animals in the beaver's lodge. And in the beaver's lodge, animals such as the Emmonitsi, the otter, Misinski, the beaver, all of our animals were in the lodge, and they gave to the man their songs, their paints, and their dances. They gifted that to us so that we would always do the ceremony. Their form of worship, they taught us how to honor Creator. And it's from their teachings, their songs and their ceremonies and their paints that my people have to do every year, depending on the season, would dictate the ceremony. Right now the snow and ice is melting where I'm from. Our winter ceremonies are wrapping up, the Ganotsis. Now other sacred items are ready to be opened with the sound of the thunder. In our way, we offer up a body after it is expired. We put it up in the trees, and whatever nourishment the animals want to take from it, they do. The bones fall to the ground. And that spring, roughly a year after that the individual has passed, the family members and those that want to support, they collect those bones. And on our territory, we have a place where no human lives. We call it the Spatsikoi. It's our big sand hills, and that's the resting place of our people. We had a distinct way to honor the people who left us. There were ceremonies, there were songs, and for the children at our schools that are in unmarked burials, they have yet to receive this. There is a place in our heart that aches because we have not yet sent them off in our sacred way. And all of you here in this room are reminding me that you care about sending off our kids in our sacred way. And you being here gives me strength and courage. And a little bit nervous, I must say, because I kind of forgot when I opened. There's a bit of a disclaimer, because as I was coming here, I explained to an elder, I'm going to Toronto. There's a national conference, and he was asking me if I was going to that night ceremony. And I respectfully declined because I was coming here. And he told me, "Gidawa tsaps." It means you're crazy. And he's right. And I'm reminded by what one of my good professors, Dr. Leroy Littlebear, would tell me when I would go to encourage a group or share with people. He'd put his hand to the side and he'd just say, just mess them up. And I think what he was meaning was provoke their thought, get them to think. You're not there to spoon feed them anything. Shake up those intellectual juices. So I'm not here to give you any secret information. I'm just here to provoke your thought. And I'm using my culture as a template. When treaty was made in 1877, Treaty 7, the Blackfoot, we have a word for treaty, which is inesti, which means a forever agreement. It's a forever promise. It's a commitment that we stand by. And we know this because when Creator gave us those sacred laws, it was inesti, it was a forever agreement. What in English we might say perpetuity. There's no sunset on these laws. So just like our treaties, there's no sunset. Well, there is an escape clause. If there's any settlers in the room, I'll let you in on a bit of a... There is a time when you don't have to honor our treaties, when our water's dry, when our grass no longer turns green. And in Treaty 7, where I'm from, we use the mountains. So when those Rocky Mountains fall, our treaties are no more. And you can have our land. But as long as our waters are flowing, our grass is still green in the spring, and those Rocky Mountains are still in place, our treaties are in effect and have the full force as the day they were signed. And in my territory, we made those agreements with the pipe. We included the sacred, and Creator was a part of our agreement, which means our treaties are sacred. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that since we made our agreements that there was acts of genocide, acts of war waged upon us. And maybe if there are any lawyers in the room, they can correct me on this. But when two parties who have entered into agreement, when one commits an act of war against their other partner, the treaty is supposed to be null and void. What ended the U.S. into the American Revolution was the Jay Treaty. But then there was the War of 1812, which made the Jay Treaty null and void. There was the Treaty of Ghent that ended the War of 1812. I have 2 minutes. So very quickly, the point I want to make is if the settlers have committed acts of war against the treaty party, the Indigenous treaty parties, are our treaties null and void? By British law, they should be null and void. But by my sacred law, it's an unbreakable commitment. Now that I have approximately 1 minute and 15 seconds, I have a very kind elder. In person, he's kind. In ceremony, well, let's say he's other than kind. He says, Agyach bigyatbi, ni bat de beatsin. Agyach bigyatbi means to enjoy life, to enjoy what you're doing. It's implied you should love yourself and act accordingly. So I would encourage you all, from my elder, to enjoy your life, to enjoy what you're doing. Lastly, espomotsiopa amadutsiman. I ask each and every one of you in here to help us, to help me, and I will help you with my smudge, and help me with your smudge. To all the women, may you live to be old women. To all the men, may you live to be old men. And you're wondering, what is an old man, what is an old woman? In the language we say, is 100 blossoms. It refers to spring. And is 100 colds, which refers to 100 winters. So live to be 100. Stamiga kimat. Hold on to your life force. Persevere. Ai tishdan. Have patience. Be kind and gentle to yourselves. And the best sending I have is Kitsikako Mimpshpawao. I love all of you. Agidamatsin no tsiyo. I will see you all again in this life or the next.
Thank you very much, Scott. I don't know about you, but I think I could sit here and listen to Scott all day with the stories and the sharing that he has. So, Migach, thank you. Next, I'll call upon Carmelo Swan, who is from Manitoba.
Good morning, guys. Scott's speech was so good. Now I'm a little nervous. Okay. My name is Carmelo Morningstar Swan. I'm 19 years old and an intergenerational survivor of many genocide attempts of my family's bloodlines. I am both Inuk and Ojibwe. As we are already aware, the legacy of residential school systems is a very long and sad part of our history as Indigenous peoples on this territory across Canada. The Inuk perspective is one that often gets overlooked, dismissed, or forgotten. And as a youth and family of this legacy, I will work hard and with a passion to give the voices to my generation and generations to come, to educate, learn with love and compassion, as these are the core values that have been installed with me by my mother. The discovery of our children has woken up many people's eyes to the history of our Indigenous people, but has brought out the true histories that our communities have always known to be true. Many of our Inuit have the same timeline of negative events that have transpired across Canada. The only difference to me is the location Inuit hold in their territories. They're isolated. I see why it is so easy to be forgotten about or even included, and having the office of the special interlocular, oh, so sorry guys, that's a big word. Interlocular? Yeah, okay. Including the Inuk perspective gives me hope for my people, and most importantly, to our youth, who are like me, the future change makers. Ensuring our collective voices are heard gives me hope that change will happen, and the lack of respect, love, humility, courage, wisdom, and truth that was once denied as a result of residential schools to our Indigenous children will be held to make our voices stronger and more amazing for our youth today. To make these changes, to uphold our rights as Indigenous people to better a degree, and with truth, love, humility, courage, wisdom, and especially respect. The 7 sacred teachings I have always known as an Indigenous person growing up in Winnipeg has helped me grow to be the human being I am today. These teachings give me the strength to continue the work that needs to be done for our communities, for myself, and our families. On the same token, the 7 sacred teachings that I just spoke of are also other teachings of my Inuk side. Inuit social values have been in place for millennia. Being guided by these principles as we address our challenges and step forward together towards a brighter future, the values that I will be speaking on are interchangeable, but is a way for communities to be guided in a way that respects others as we work together to create change, acceptance. These are our IQ values: respecting others, relationships, and caring for people. Fostering good spirits by being open, welcoming, and inclusive. Serving and providing for family and community. Decision making through discussion. Development of skills through observation, mentoring, practice, and effort. Working together for a common cause. Being innovative and resourceful. Respect and care for the land, animals, and environment. Using our values as Indigenous people and how we treat and care for more discoveries of our ancestors must be acknowledged, and use so much care for our ancestors. These values for many years. As a youth doing cart work with our Inuit youth, it starts with making sure our voices are heard with recommendations so that the youth voice is not forgotten. I love my culture. I love learning from our elders. We learn to all work together with our voices, and that is how we can make sure everything can work together for working for a common cause. As a young Inuk woman, being included in events also gives me an opportunity to learn, and for that I am thankful for. Queen, thank you.
Miigwech, thank you very much, Carmelo. So next I'll call upon Stephanie.
Uplakut Stephanie Naglangyak Uvunga, Kugarut Mute Tavunga, Winnipeg mi Piu Suktunga, Inuktitut Atika, Uyugak Nayuichuk. Good morning, my name is Stephanie Naglangyak. My home community is Kugaruk Nunavut, but I've grown up and reside in the city of Winnipeg. I also wanted to honor and acknowledge my Inuktitut names, which is Uyugak Nayuichuk. I think it's so important to acknowledge those names and their stories and their history and their prayers and their blessings that have gotten me here in those names. I'm an urban Inuk living in Treaty 1 territory. My grandmother's name is Sidoni Nikolongiuk, and she attended the Chesterfield Inlet Residential School from the age of 12 in 1956 to 1962. Growing up, my mom would tell me and my sister that our grandma went away to this place called a residential school when she was younger, but did not give us context into what that was for most of our childhood. As a child, I had an image in my mind as to what that was. As a small child, I had imagined it as a mystical place over the beautiful mountains of my home community, where kids played on the land and had opportunities to learn in safe spaces as a child like I did. My mom explained to us that our grandma went away to school when she was younger, and that's where she learned to speak English. And our grandpa, who was an orphan and did not attend residential school, and that's why he could only speak in Inuktitut. I honestly didn't fully comprehend the real history of residential schools until I was almost in high school. I think it was something that was sugar-coated as a defense mechanism for my family. Once I got to high school, I had an Indigenous studies class, and this was the first Indigenous teacher I had had. She asked our class if anyone's grandparents had attended residential schools, and I raised my hand, along with a few other of my classmates. She asked if we felt comfortable talking about it and encouraged us to talk to our grandparents about it, to understand their stories. This was the first time I had asked my grandma about her experience. The conversation was very awkward and brief. When I got into post-secondary, I remember feeling so uncomfortable sitting in one of my Indigenous studies classes hearing the raw and real history of these quote-unquote schools, with the other horrific Indigenous histories that have always been just sugar-coated in my education up until then. I ended up dropping this class because I was feeling so overwhelmed. But it had sparked the need to know more. I started learning more about my history, my culture, and things started to make sense to me, like the pieces of a puzzle coming together. Suddenly, the passing of my uncle and my two younger cousins who had died by suicide made sense to me. This was something that wasn't explained to me growing up either. I understand now. I think my mom was just trying to protect us because she so deeply feared losing us the same way. In 2018, well into my learnings, I had lost another one of my cousins, Nate, to suicide. It had hit so hard, I fell into a deep depression and used many unhealthy coping mechanisms to deal with this. In 2019, I was introduced to the late Kelly Fraser, who is an extremely inspiring, vibrant, smart Inuk artist. She taught me so much about my community, my culture, and gave me so many amazing opportunities. As we all know, Kelly would later die by suicide that year. This loss had hit 10 times harder. I remember my mom checking in on me so often around this time and reminding us that she didn't know what she would do without us. I later met with an Indigenous school counselor in my post-secondary who had let me just break down and cry for the first time. She told me what I had experienced in my life is called trauma. This was the first time someone had acknowledged the things that I've gone through as traumatic. From this point on, I started my healing journey. This was the first place I had felt safe in my own culture. Something that should have been so easily accessible to me was not something I was able to access up until my early adulthood. In this space, I learned to talk and honor my feelings. I learned to ask questions and to be in community because that is where I so deeply needed to be. In 2021, we lost my younger cousin Shania to suicide, who was a mother to two beautiful babies. When we went back home for her funeral, the community had set up an Embrace Life walk a few days after her funeral. I remember all my aunties asking around and making sure that they knew when the walk was happening because my grandma was so determined to attend this. Throughout the walk, I thought to myself, this woman, I was looking at her while we were at this Embrace Life walk, and I thought to myself, she's lost a son and 4 grandchildren to suicide and many community members. But she walks through life with so much love and forgiveness. She has the strength that I cannot even comprehend. Her love for her community and her family is something that could have never been stripped from her in her time going away to residential schools. During this time of this loss, I had already built healthy coping tools to help me. It didn't make it hurt any less, but this time I knew things would be okay. I look at these losses and think of the messaging that I've learned about residential schools. Yes, my grandma may not have, as she says, she may not have suffered extensive abuse in her time away, but she was stripped of many years of opportunities to be in her community where she was loved and so deeply needed. So many of these different factors play into the losses of my family and friends in my community, as mentioned. But they also deeply reflect into the issues going on in our communities that directly stem from the genocide of these residential schools. This past year, my grandma went to go hear the Pope's apology with my mother in Edmonton. As she says, it's something she felt she needed to hear. And I'm really grateful that she had that opportunity for her healing. The reason I am sharing these stories about my family and my friends is because it is essential for our youth to know who we are, the raw, real history of our people. Knowing where you come from and to put context into why our families may be in the situations they are in helps our communities. It is essential into building healthy communities. Something that has been reoccurring in coming up to this event, and I had told DeAndre this, the quote that keeps coming up into this is, to know where we are going, we must first know where we have been. I also want to say that sharing our history, we do not only need to focus on the traumatic experiences. Like Carmela has said, our IQ principles have always led us. They have brought us healing. They have brought us guidance, and they have brought us our love. Our resiliency and love have gotten us this far. Our IQ principles have always led us. These are the kinds of teachings that need to be wrapped around our youth so that our youth are not continuing to walk around lost for something that they so deeply deserve to know. And if we do not continue to tell the real truth to our youth, they will continue to be lost. This lies within our IQ principles. The solutions to the issues in our communities lies within our language and our culture, our societal values. I deeply encourage our educators and our community members to keep telling your truths and your stories. I've learned so much from attending this event these past few days. And I just want all of the survivors and our elders here today to know that your stories and your courage has been so beautiful to witness. I think for more of our youth to be in these discussions is so essential, to see your courage, because it is so inspiring. And I just want to also end off by saying that, with that being said, in our elders continuing to tell their stories and to teach our language and our culture and our societal values, that is what is going to spark the healing for our future generations. Thank you.